Hello everybody, and welcome back to Screen Stars. Revolt is a 2017 newly released science fiction movie starring Lee Pace, who you may recognise from Guardians of the Galaxy. He played Ronin, and he was in the Hobbit movies as well. And it is directed by Joe Mayale, I think that's his name, how you pronounce it. And we get appearances from Jason Fleming in the movie. And it's a low budget science fiction movie, but it is just above the bracket as what you might expect for a low budget movie. It is. I've just reviewed recently on my channel Stasis. Now this is a cut above that in regards to its budget. Now the issues I had with that movie Stasis was that it was trying to be too ambitious and it didn't have the budget or the talent to cope with it. Well, you could throw a similar comparison to this movie. Now the difference is though, whereas this movie has some comparisons to movies like Monsters, you know, the one where they're wandering through the jungles and not a lot happens and occasionally something turns up. Um, District 9, War of the Worlds, and science fiction movies like that. The difference here between this and films like Stasis is that this had the budget and the talent to be able to cope with it, so therefore it was able to deliver a higher quality movie. And that's the best thing that this thing's got going for it. It is a higher quality movie than your normal low budget science fiction movie. It is just below what you would expect to see in a theatre, but it's perfectly acceptable, the effects that are presented to you here in this movie. So what is the movie about? Well, at the beginning we are introduced to Lee Pace's character, who we get to call him Bo. There has been some kind of alien invasion where right at the beginning they're in South Africa and the soldiers are fighting it, and Lee Pace is one of the soldiers fighting these alien machine creatures that have landed. And then he is in an explosion and he wakes up in a jail cell. He's no memory. So there's a bit of Born Identity in here as well. He doesn't wake up with any memory, and there's a female doctor in the cell next to him who's, I'm going to butcher her name now, she's Barahanse Malohe. I'm sure I've pronounced that terribly wrong, but she plays a doctor who's in the cell next to him. They manage to get out of this cell, they team up, and they decide to travel cross country to find safety. Doesn't really make it clear what they're doing, but and along the way they've got to avoid these machine things, as you can see on screen there, and also some of the human characters who are pretty brutal and nasty too. So that's kind of the story that we've got here. Now the biggest criticism I have with this movie is its lack of direction. I don't mean physical direction by the director, he doesn't do a terrible job. There's no real point to the movie. There's no goal, there's no end goal. He wakes up with no memory, and even when that is revealed later, it's not really much of a revelation in regards to what is lost in his memory. There's no direction in the sense of we don't really know where they're going or why they're going there. We don't know anything about the alien invasion, when it happened, how the world was coping with it, how the fight back's going. It's just kind of focused on these characters, but it tries to put the feelers out elsewhere. But it's quite hard to describe. It just doesn't feel like it's got any real goal in the movie, and you never really feel like there's any end game here. It's just getting from A to B, surviving, and then joining up with some rebels at the end, sort of thing. You never really feel like there's any satisfying conclusion here. But like I say, it's an half-decent sci-fi movie, this. I think Lee Pace does a good job. He's not exactly the most charismatic, heroic lead I've ever seen, but he does a fine job. Jason Fleming's cameo is very good. He does that very well. The effects are, like I say, much better than I expected them to be. I thought this was going to be really low budget, and then when I started watching it kind of surprise me. The setting is fantastic in South Africa. It really does give off that apocalyptic feel almost. Some of the wide shots are a bit dodgy. You know, when they do some like wide shots and you see like the annihilation in the distance, they don't kind of do an amazing job with some of those shots. But it's not a bad attempt. This I really don't think. I do think if they'd have had a clearer story, a cohesive story, something that made sense, something for you to root for. Like I say, we don't know anything about these aliens. We're not given any information about them. We only really briefly see one of the ships in the sky a couple of times. We don't learn their goals on the planet or anything like that. So it just kind of leaves you a little bit like, well, that movie's just happened, but I don't really know what it was about. So it kind of leaves you a little bit dissatisfied. But if you're looking for a fairly decent, high-quality sci-fi movie, this is definitely one to go for. It's not bad at all.